What makes every groomsman refuse to stand at the altar 5 minutes before the ceremony? I was standing in the groom's suite adjusting my tie when Kevin's phone buzzed on the dresser for the 15th time in 10 minutes. The other 4 groomsmen were scattered around the room checking their cufflinks and smoothing their jackets. Kevin grabbed his phone and his face went completely white as he read whatever was on the screen. I watched his hand start trembling so hard the phone almost slipped from his grip. He looked up at me and then at the door like he was calculating the distance to an escape route. The wedding coordinator knocked twice and called through the wood that we had 20 minutes until places. Kevin shoved his phone into his pocket and walked to the window with his back to all of us. I heard him take 3 deep breaths that shuddered on the exhale. Something was very wrong, and every single one of us could feel it hanging in the air like smoke. The first strange thing had happened the night before at the rehearsal dinner when Kevin disappeared for 40 minutes during dessert. His fiancée Allison had asked where he was, and I covered for him by saying he was handling a surprise for the wedding day. I found him in the parking lot pacing beside his car with his phone pressed against his ear and his voice too low to hear. He hung up when he saw me and forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The second strange thing was the way Allison's maid of honor kept glaring at Kevin across the room like she knew something the rest of us didn't. I noticed her whispering to the other bridesmaids and watching their faces shift from confusion to disgust. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife asking if everything was okay because the bridesmaids were acting weird. I typed back that I didn't know and shoved the phone back in my pocket. The wedding coordinator knocked again and said 15 minutes. I always assumed Kevin was nervous because every groom gets nervous on their wedding day. I convinced myself the phone calls and the pacing and the pale face were just normal pre-wedding jitters. Kevin had been my best friend since college and I trusted him with my life. He and Allison had been together for 4 years and they seemed perfect for each other in every way that mattered. I believed he loved her and that this was going to be the happiest day of both their lives. Then Marcus walked over to Kevin and asked if he could borrow a charger from his bag. Kevin nodded without turning around and Marcus unzipped the duffel on the floor. I watched Marcus pull out a phone charger and then freeze with his hand still inside the bag. His face twisted into something I had never seen before and he pulled out a second phone. The screen lit up with a notification and Marcus read it out loud before any of us could stop him. Marcus held up the phone and showed us a text thread with someone named Jenna that went back 18 months. The messages were explicit and detailed and included photos I wished I could unsee. Kevin spun around and lunged for the phone, but Marcus stepped backward and held it out of reach. I grabbed Kevin's arm and felt his whole body shaking under his suit jacket. He said it was nothing and that Jenna meant nothing. I asked him if Allison knew, and he just stared at the floor without answering. The other groomsmen gathered around the phone and scrolled through messages that proved Kevin had been living a double life. There were dates and hotel receipts and promises to leave Allison as soon as the timing was right. The wedding coordinator knocked a third time and said 10 minutes to places. I dropped Kevin's arm and stepped away from him like he was contaminated. Marcus threw the phone onto the bed and it bounced twice before landing screen up. The other groomsmen were already removing their boutonnieres and placing them on the dresser one by one. I heard footsteps in the hallway and voices asking if the men were ready. Kevin grabbed my jacket and begged me not to do this to him. I peeled his fingers off the fabric and told him he did this to himself. The door opened and the wedding coordinator's smile disappeared when she saw 5 groomsmen standing against the wall with their flowers removed. She asked what was happening and nobody answered her. Kevin sank onto the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. I walked past him and out the door and the others followed behind me in a single file line. The truth is, Kevin had been cheating on Allison for 18 months while planning a wedding and accepting gifts and writing vows he never meant to keep. We found the maid of honor in the hallway and handed her the second phone without explanation. Her face crumpled as she scrolled and then hardened into something cold. She walked into the bridal suite and closed the door behind her. I heard Allison scream through the walls and the sound echoed through the entire venue. Guests started murmuring and standing up from their seats, wondering why no one was walking down the aisle. Kevin appeared in the hallway, still begging someone to listen to him, but every door stayed closed. The 5 of us walked out the front entrance of the venue and stood in the parking lot loosening our ties. I pulled out my phone and blocked Kevin's number while the others did the same. Then we got in our cars and drove away from the wedding that never happened.